Having recently released on the Wii U's eShop, Unepic seems like a standard action RPG platformer in the vein of Castlevania and Metroid. However, the important thing to note is that Unepic tends to stand out from the crowd by providing a very challenging campaign, witty dialogue, and the way the game utilizes the Wii U Gamepad. So much so that it actually differentiates itself from the PC version. And for a mere $10 US, Unepic is very affordable and a great value. I have to be honest, the story is nothing to write home about. You play as Daniel, a typical young adult male who is playing D&D with some friends when he suddenly appears in a castle. Thinking he's hallucinating, he plays along and eventually meets this ghost who tries to possess him, but instead the ghost gets trapped inside of Daniel's body. From this point, you're basically let loose and supposed to explore the castle and find out just what you need to do to wake up from this hallucination, so to speak. Throughout the game, Daniel will interact and converse with Zira, the spirit that is trapped in his body. Their conversations are actually highly entertaining, as Zira is constantly trying to get Daniel killed so he can escape his fleshy prison, while Daniel seems like he just enjoys the company. Throughout the castle, there are various inhabitants that will have different things to say as well. There are quite a few Star Wars references, but that is only the tip of the iceberg, as I'm sure I haven't even realized the rest of them. Unfortunately, some of the humor and references do grow pretty tiring by the end of the game. Some of the humor is even a tad misogynistic and juvenile, which is a little off-putting. As Daniel, you get to roam around the castle's 200+ rooms and discover all manner of secrets and boss monsters. Combat is based largely on skill points that you receive when you level up. You'll get to pick between a dozen or so different skills to place points in, including all sorts of individual weapons, magic, armor, and even potions. Seeing as how there are a ton of different skills but only limited skill points available, you need to be very careful where you place your points. Speaking of being careful, odds are you'll need to play this game with a cautious attitude. It's tough, especially on the higher difficulties, and enemies will literally tear you apart without a moment's notice. You also need to utilize certain weapons in order to be effective against certain enemies. For example, if you don't put any points into a blunt weapon, you might not be very effective against skeletons or certain bosses. It's certainly a game of give and take. There are multiple difficulty levels, and the game even rewards you with extra skill points if you're playing on harder difficulties. This actually gives an incentive to go back through the game on Hard++ mode, where the enemies do significantly more damage and have extra health. It'd be great if more games took this approach, as it really gives a sense of accomplishment upon completing a tough fight and leveling up. Visually, the game shows nothing in terms of technical prowess. However, in terms of artistic style, it is very reminiscent of older NES and SNES games. The bosses look absolutely phenomenal and they're very creative, but I can't quite say the same thing about the standard enemies. I can only describe the audio as typical for this sort of game. A few of the tracks are pretty awesome, such as the theme in the garden section of the castle, but the others aren't really worth remembering. Seeing as how Unepic was ported to the Wii U, you might be wondering how it takes advantage of the Wii U Gamepad. For the most part, the Gamepad is used as an inventory shortcut screen. Now I know what you're thinking, that sounds kind of lame, but actually it's one of the most useful additions to the game. You'll need to switch your weapons often, use many magic spells and items, and keep track of how many materials you have as you play through the game. Fortunately, the Gamepad offers the perfect opportunity to do this without hogging up a portion of your television screen. Instead of fumbling through a menu, you can simply tap a button on the Gamepad screen to equip your weapon, summon your pets, or use an item. There's also a Gamepad only play, but the downside to this is that you won't have a second screen to use as your inventory. You can tap the button while playing in Gamepad mode to open up the shortcut menu, but that will take your eyes off the action for a moment, so it's kind of a disadvantage. It's important to note that Unepic was released a few years back on the PC. The differences between the Wii U and the PC version are largely between the Gamepad on the Wii U and the online multiplayer on the PC. It is possible for the Wii U to get the multiplayer in a future update, but as of today it has not been announced. However, playing on the PC is a bit tedious in my opinion because of the controls. It's much easier and more immersive to play with the Gamepad, and it helps that the Gamepad keeps track of all your inventory as well. I really have to applaud Fran, the creator of Unepic, for his work on the Wii U. The PC version of the game is wonderful, but the Wii U version might just win me over because of the Gamepad only functions. Needless to say, Unepic is a wonderful game if you're into platforming and role-playing games. It's needlessly difficult and has a steep learning curve, but that's part of its charm. Once again, thanks for watching our video review of Unepic on the Wii U. If you'd like more, feel free to check out JumpToGamer.com for all sorts of gaming content, and also make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube by clicking this button right here so you can watch all of our future videos.